if anybody has any questions of the topics we have covered so far before we get on to the sales management part. Anybody has any questions so far? Pradeep, about the best assignment I have shared, I think, in the feedbacks. I would love to share the best assignment, but I'll hold it till most people have submitted a given assignment. The reason is that I want you all to do an individual effort, and we tend to look at a solved example and start believing that we have understood everything and can do it well. So there are good assignments I have saved, including the second assignment, but I will definitely put up the best assignments as soon as most of the students have submitted their assignments. Assignment 1, I have got about 27 so far, so I guess there are still a few to come. And assignment 2 till yesterday I had about 12, which I corrected and sent the feedback. And some more would have come in the last 24 hours, which I could not check, but tomorrow I'll find and do them as well. So you'll get that material, but I will still hope that you all put your own efforts and you will understand far better than just seeing an assignment which probably others have done. Because your logic in all this is what is important, and that can only come from personal efforts. As far as reading the documents referred on portal for marketing is concerned, I told you in the very first class that they are just there for reference for you to read whenever you find time. I have structured the course in a manner that every session goes chronologically, and I expect you to only read, only see the recording if you have not attended, and do that assignment. None of the study materials that I have put there need to be referred to go through this course. There are a lot of material which you can keep reading whenever you have time. Okay. So to start with the feedback on the second assignment, we did segmentation, targeting, positioning. Primarily being the election scenario that we tried to take, mostly we were talking about the segmentation. All the targets were supposed to be targeted, so there is no specific targeting we do there. And then the mediums are the various modes of positioning that we have done to be visible to those target segments, which are all the segments. But in reality, which I have also given as feedback to a lot of people, the main objective here is to define the entire market, do as deep a segmentation as possible, and then to find those segments which are most likely going to have the highest NCDV and therefore will be the ones who are likely to be our target audience, and make the plans for positioning only with respect to those top 3-4 segments that we are going after. Now, when you exhaust a segment, you move to the next one. And obviously, you expect the productivity in that next segment to be a little lower, which pushes up the costs of marketing as well, but that's the price you pay for more growth. Today, I'm trying to take the other side of the spectrum, which is sales management. Now, sales is actually a subset of marketing. It's not a separate part of marketing. It's not separate than marketing. But still, in a lot of companies, you have a separate sales department and a marketing department. So my question now first is, why do you think people have separate marketing and sales departments when sales is a subset of marketing? So the question is, why do big organizations have separate sales and marketing departments when sales is just a subset of marketing? To allocate the cost separately, marketing is a process, while sales is a no-brainer. Marketing seems to be more strategy oriented than sales. To have an account of, okay, so everyone is somewhat right, but not completely right. Can we put it like that, okay, they need different skill sets. Why do they need different skill sets? So again, everybody is somewhat right, but not totally right. They don't really need different skill sets. In fact, the next question which comes here is that should people go directly into marketing, or is it better to go into sales first and then marketing? Should people directly go in marketing or start with sales? So the reason why we say that one should start with sales is because sales is where you meet the actual customer. So it's actually the last part of marketing, or the last mile of marketing, as they say. But still, it is said that if you understand the last mile, you know the pulse and feedback, as Deepak has written here, then you can understand the marketing to be done behind it more easily. In terms of why they are different, it is because there are different objectives totally of marketing, sales, and corporate. So I've written these three objectives that you can see here. A corporate objective is to increase profit. A marketing objective is to increase market share. And a sales objective is to increase sales. Okay. Now, again, as you read this, you believe that all three are in tandem. If you have increased sales, you will have increased market share. And if you have increased market share and increased sales, you will have increased profit. But that is not necessary. Give me examples where you have a big market share but you have losses. Give me examples where you have big market share and you have losses. Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind is the Flipkarts and the Snapdeals, also the airline industry. So there are a lot of players in these industries who have very big market shares, but they're still running in losses. So corporate objective somewhere is not being met, although the marketing objective is being met, that is to increase the market share. And the belief is that over a period of time, if the market share is big, then we will start increasing the prices and we will increase our profit. So profit is more of a function of margins, which is based on the efficiency of running the operations as well as the price that is realized from the customer. Whereas market share is simply a function of how many customers do you have out of the total customer base. And the third is the sales objective, which is simply increase in sales. So can you have an increase in sales with a decrease in market share? Can you have an increase in sales and still have a loss of market share? Okay. So Manoj, can you give us some example how it can happen? Okay. So let's put it like that there were 100 customers in 2014 and I had 22 of them. So what is my market share? So what is my market share? 22%. Now next year, there are 200 customers, but I have increased sales and got 35 customers. What is my market share? %17.5%. Okay. So what you see here is that I have increased from 22 to 35 and still I have dropped in market share. So it is a concept which I will take up in the next session about market share, sales growth and other things. But to understand for this particular session, this is where the dichotomy comes between marketing and sales. That is, the sales guys would be happy that they increase the numbers, and still the marketing person would be unhappy that the market share was lost and the say in that segment has dropped. In normal terms, we also sometimes say marketing, the objective is to create pull, and the sales objective is to push. So the sales guy has a more short-term objective, which is to generate an immediate sales and an immediate revenue, whereas the marketing objective is more long-term, where they create a brand. As I've already told you, the definition of brand is consistent experience over a considerable period of time, which means marketing people need a longer time to create that trust and brand. And over that time, once they've done it, they have a more stability of their business. That is where the differences in these two objectives come. The sales objective becomes very important because simply it is the one which generates the revenue and actually gets the money into the system. Which is why we also say it's always good to understand that last mile and how difficult it is to make a customer commit before simply getting into marketing and making long-term plans. So unless you can understand how difficult the short-term part is, it is difficult to just understand the long-term proposition. Any questions still here? Okay, so let's move ahead. Sales, as also lot of people said, it's a more obvious thing. And the reason for that is that this is a place where you have a lot of manpower you have a lot of field staff. They are generally not with the best of academic skills, and you expect them to do a more robotic or mechanical job, which is why it is important to create a structure in sales and to keep it as standardized as possible. So a question here which I have to all of you: as a salesperson, I see a process which can be improved. Should I stick to the process told to me, or do what I can as an improvement? Can you all see the question? So you have a situation in front of you where, as a salesperson, you see that the process defined has, it can be improved, but should I stick to the process that has been told to me, or should I do an improvement? Okay. So the answer to this is that it is better to stick to the process that is already there and first convey what is the improvement that you believe needs to be done. Now the reason for that is that whenever the process is improved, everybody across sales should be doing the same thing. It is unwise to have 4 end customers being given different processes. So someone is told that you have to follow an X process. Another person says, no, this X process for this guy doesn't work, so let me tell him a Y process. Now that is what creates a dichotomy over there, and you may end up losing all the customers. So whenever you do a process change in sales, it must happen across all of sales. There's a question here that has been put, or a statement here that has been put, that IT sales is different. It is strategic, and it may not be true for IT sales. My answer to that is that as a concept, it is generic across any kind of domain. Yes, different domains do have a little bit of differences. IT sales doesn't have that big a sales force, so to say, which operates on one kind of product, and therefore changing a process there sometimes becomes far more easier because the communication happens faster. Secondly, IT sales is more a long-term solution, and it's not an impulse buy. Therefore, you get many attempts to improve your situation, and you don't lose or get a customer based on the current engagement that you have. But otherwise, whatever as a concept works for one domain, the safest is always to stick to that concept and then look for a better way where the standardization can be maintained and then the improvement can be done. Another question: is it okay to say that B2B and B2C sales are different? It's a good question, because B2B and B2C are actually very different, and B2B and B2C are different because of the word impulse. B2B and B2C. Impulse is a big differentiator. There is no impulse sales of any kind in a B2C scenario, in a B2B scenario. only where you are directly interacting with the customer you can have an impulse purchase. Second, in a B2B versus a B2C, the other major differentiation is that the objective of the end customer is different. In a B2B situation, many times the product that has been taken is a value addition further for a sales into some other place. Secondly, a B2B can be a channel sales where the channel member is only interested in his commission for further sales. Whereas in a B2C, you are dealing with the end customer and therefore the need of that customer becomes important. The key here always is that when we try to learn sales, we should talk about or we should try and understand first B2C. Yeah, so Pradeep, that could be true that for a company to decide whether to invest or not is already done before someone approaches them. That is possible and true. Okay, and yes, marketing, Surya, needs to be different for every process. It needs to be customized to whatever is the situation. What I am basically trying to communicate here is whatever is done should be done standardized across a process. Right? IT sales does need more technical background because it's a much longer engagement with a lot of questions being asked about the solution. Right? As far as B2B, B2C is concerned, just to wind up the discussion, even if you look at the FMCG companies which are basically into B2B, and they have distributors which eventually do the other work, they keep the pulse on B2C. So they have their own people who almost like a market research keep seeing what is the consumer surveys. And that is important as far as the B2C is concerned. Pradeep, I'm not very sure about what H2H is, but I'll probably look it up and tell it to you next time. Human to human, okay? So some, as I believe it would be, human to human is more on the personal interaction as a part of B2C. Probably it will get covered to some extent in the steps that you see here. So the traditional steps have been these 7 ones, which start from prospecting and go to follow-up. Whereas in the digital world that we talk about, we call this more like top of the funnel, which is prospecting. And then the complete engagement process, that is pre-approach to closing. And then the bottom of the funnel, which is closing and follow-up. Okay, so that's how we look at it in the digital world. Let's just understand one by one what these 7 steps mean. So what do we understand by prospecting? What do we understand by prospecting? Okay, so prospecting basically is identifying customers, which in normal terms today is lead gen. Okay, and you have a lot of digital lead generation that is happening through the Google AdWords and Facebook and so on. And you have these various other processes that I have mentioned here, traditionally acquaintances, references, cold calling, so on. Now, I would also like to point out here that in lead gen, I always tell people there is a finding for that customer and the other one which is being found. The customers are also finding for sellers, right? So if you are going to buy something, you also try to do a research over the net or very where as to who are the people who can provide this. So being found is also important, and that's where the website, the search engine optimization and all these become important parts. So this is simply lead generation. It is called prospecting. The next that you go is pre-approach. So you have a lot of leads. What do you do in pre-approach? You have a lot of leads now. What do you do in pre-approach? Okay. So pre-approach is basically differentiating the prospect from a suspect. Okay. And who is a suspect? Who is a suspect? So you're doing the filtration, you're doing all this. Who is a suspect? Is a suspect someone who won't buy? So yeah, a suspect is someone who may or may not buy. There are times where you can clearly differentiate that the wrong person has come into your system reading something else and they will not take. On the other hand, you can see the data and also ascertain whose need is more pronounced, so he is more likely to buy quickly, and whose need is not so pronounced, he is less likely to buy quickly. As I mentioned, always the key everywhere is the cost of customer acquisition. So suppose you get 10,000 leads and you try to do a process for all 10,000, it will be a huge drain on resources and money if you are working on those who may not have the need at all, or those who have just checked it out but may take it only after a year or two. So it's always better to again keep doing your STP sort of exercise, which is keep filtering and targeting and finding that customer who is more likely to take it up quickly. So that is pre-approach. The next part, that is approach, is more simple, which is setting up a direct interaction with the prospect. So you can meet over Skype, Hangout, you can have a personal meeting. And this is where probably this word of human to human has come in, that whether you have a personal meeting or you use the technology to come as close to a personal meeting. Probably the word human to human has also come up because the call centers have grown to such a large extent, and these call centers have become a methodology in themselves. And this is a place where, by very definition, you do not have a strong human connect. The only sense with which you are connecting is voice. There is no video. There is no possibility of checking out emotions. There is not a very strong connect. So probably that is where human to human has come from. Okay, so Pradeep has a question here. Any scan through how to find out when we have no data at all? So I am not very sure what I get from your answer, but you will have data because whenever you take a certain lead, you have to define something called a qualified lead. Okay. And okay, probably that is what you're asking me, which is you have a campaign, someone just clicks on that campaign and gives his name and email ID, you don't know anything. But a lot of people ask for you to register through your Facebook account or to register through your LinkedIn account, and which is basically trying to get through to your profile so that they can do the prospecting part. Second is that when you have a landing page, you can have a different set of definition which says a qualified lead. So qualified lead is someone who just doesn't reach your landing page with a cookie giving the email ID or something like that, but someone who reads through your basic information and fills a certain data form that you have mentioned there, and that data form has the necessary data which helps you scan through and decide who is a prospect and who is a suspect. Pradeep, does that answer your question? Okay. So that's how it's done. So you have the approach after that. After approach, you do the real part, which is the presentation and demonstration. You talk about your product, you communicate your USP, and you engage with a question. Now, my question here is, does the USP remain same for every customer? Okay. So that's the key here, that you have a lot of features in your product, but amongst those features, for every customer, there is a primary feature. So for example, people have phones for which their main usage is only data. Some people, for them it's only calling. For some people it's simply SMS. And we have this example in front of us where you have customized plans for every type of usage. So this is an important part of this step, that you ensure that depending on what you hear as a need from the customer, and you keep engaging with questions there for that, you tell about the USP which makes most sense to that customer. So that's the key as far as the presentation and demonstration is concerned. People are likely to have a short attention span, and it's always better to communicate according to what is that need and hand over that the person requires. There are again, some examples which in daily life we see around us. Today when you go to a mall, you do not have a person over there who is there to communicate a USP and to sell for you. So you have a lot of shelves, products kept there, price known. You can check out different products, see the price, decide for your own and take. So why do you think this is done? Why don't they have people there to try and upsell, people there to try and listen to you and to give you more? Okay, so the reason is that these people as a business model believe that they want to give more freedom to the customer themselves. As Sachin has pointed out, malls give choices and they are not really concerned beyond that. There is a cost to everything. So if you have a human interface, there is a cost. reduce that cost, give more choices, people may be happier over there, rather than some grocer trying to only show that product which he gets more margin on and wants to push that. Okay, so that's the model which they work on. But then there are instances where the salesperson is also very important. I'll give you an example. You have a jewelry store. A person goes in and sits in a jewelry store. One can say that for security reasons, people are not allowed to check out on their own and take. But I'm sure that there are different ways of solving security issues. What is the first question that a jewelry fellow asks you? Yes. So the first question is, what do you want to buy and what is your price range and budget? So they will tell you specific sections where diamond products are there, or gold products are there, or cosmetic products are there, or where you will get rings or chains, or different type of products. And then the first thing a person will ask you is budget. Why is that asking budget very important? Why is asking that budget very important? Okay. So imagine a situation that you have decided to buy a diamond ring and you have a budget of say 3 lakhs with you. You go to a showroom, you say I want to take a ring, and the fellow takes out a ring which is very, very beautiful. Okay? A ring which at the first glance is exactly what you wanted, huge stone and looks very nice, everything is great. And then you ask the price and the fellow says rupees 300 only. What do you do? Yeah. So do you understand what will happen? You will effectively not be able to buy anything. That 300 is probably something like someone said buy it. It could be like take this right now, be happy, it solves your purpose and the entire budget is remaining with me. I'll put in this 300 separately as an add-on, right? But effectively what has happened, it has spoiled your shopping experience. You will not be able to buy something which is genuine now because someone has shown you an artificial product which completely matched the taste that you wanted, and it is so cheap that in your mind you've got a doubt now that is it even worthwhile spending so much amount of money if the artificial stuff today is absolutely looking the same and actually it looks better to me. Okay, so what has happened is that time that human interface, that guy has actually just spoiled the whole market. And that's why there is a certain necessity of keeping a standardization always, that even if it irritates the customers at time, almost makes a person feel the next thing you'll ask me is when I was born and are my nakshatras right for coming and buying from you. So you do feel bad at times, but there is an importance of that structure. You go to a shop to buy a sari or something, that fellow will ask you 100 questions. What's your range? What's the color you're looking at? What's the type you're looking at? And keep pushing you and everybody will keep saying show more, and then let's see what we want to take. Okay, but then there is a purpose to asking those questions and trying to continuously ensure that you do not spoil the opportunity of taking from a customer what that fellow has come out to spend today. Because when that gets spoiled, the customer effectively is unable to buy anything. Look at a conversation when you actually go to do purchases for saris and all. That person also has an additional question. What is the purpose of your buy? Okay, so people say office wear, people say regular wear, people also say for gifting, and people also say for marriage. Now, if they say that it is for a marriage or some big occasion, again the budget becomes very important. Because whatever you like is going to be compared with what you spent for what you liked. You know, the talk of the town is not going to be whether the dress of the groom or the bride was so good, but the talk is going to be how much did the parents spend on that dress for the groom and the bride. And since that budget is important, why spoil that budget? It is also very possible that whatever you like and you found that the budget didn't match, the answer that you get is show me something better. And that item has been picked out, quietly taken out from the crowd, repacked, brought back into a range that you want, and you spend that much money and pick it up. Because now it is in your budget and it also is what you like. Okay, so that's the importance of a structure and how this key part of presentation and demonstration is actually done on the ground. The next part that we have here is what we call objection handling. Price, quality, payment, after sales service, timing to buy. Can you think of any other reason? Can you think of any other reason other than this? Brand. So brand is obviously in front of you already when you have reached till this stage. Yeah, so value for money is like the payment part or the price. Alternatives, yes. Maybe you can say that show me more alternatives. After sales service, I've already covered. So the reason I've actually put these over here is that there's nothing much more that you have over there. Now I'll take it a little radically different. You are traveling in an airplane and you have an unknown person who comes and sits next to you. What do you talk to the person about? Weather, okay, what's up? Services of the airlines. Where do you go? Where are you from? What is your profession? What do you do? Okay. So what is common in all these questions? What is common in all these questions? Okay. So the commonality of all these questions that it is some question which is expected. Okay. Have you ever started a conversation with someone coming and sitting next to you and you say, hey, you look as if you just lost your job? Can you start a conversation like that? Can you tell that fellow and say, I hope you got divorced today? You can't do that. Okay? That guy is going to smack you, or he won't talk to you, or he won't answer you back. So what are you trying to do? You're finding a common ground in an expected question, right? And the same thing now if you relate over here, it's the turn of the customer to ask something when all the objection handling has happened, when the entire demonstration has happened, you have engaged with a question. Sir, do you have a question? Can that fellow ask a question suddenly and say, do you have a girlfriend? No. So you have a question. That question has to relate to whatever is the topic at hand. It has to be an expected question, and that expected question has to be around these things only, because there is nothing else we've been talking about now except this product and whatever is the part of this product. So we call this objection handling, but is it really objections? Are these really objections? So because you don't have anything else to say, you ask repeatedly same questions. Can you tell me the price again? How is the service for this going to happen? Can I pay in installments? Some questions like that. The quality doesn't look so good, especially in the cloth. I have never been able to understand how people make out the quality by feeling it. And every time the salesman said, feel this and it looks far better. I say, you making me feel it and you're saying looks far better. I still don't understand what's the difference. But I guess people with very, very strong senses are able to find out how it looks better, how it feels better. But they do it. It's also like, for me, colors are green, light green, dark green. But when you go with your spouse for shopping, you hear many more. You hear a bottle green, you hear a parrot green, you hear you God knows how many sorts of greens. And the matching of all that is also very, very specific. And those become more talking points that this is not mera wala green. It's not that green I'm looking for. But then that's what you learn there. Anyway. So what you do here is you have to communicate something which is relevant to that, and these objections generally are not objections. They're just something to engage. And therefore, the key to remember here is sometimes you just don't even need to give an answer to the question that is asked. Now recollect again many of the good salesmen you have come across. Whatever you say, they seem to have a different answer. So you will say, this doesn't look like that green, and that fellow will say, look, see how nice it looks on you. What has that got to do with which green? But he'll just say, look how nice this looks on you. So it's more of people need to ask something. It's an important process of engagement. They will ask around these things only. You may answer according to that question if it makes sense, or you just need to keep answering more about your own product and how good it looks, how nice it feels, just to sort of reiterate for the person that they're taking the right decision. Okay? Any questions still here? Any questions still here? Okay. So we go on to the most crucial part, which is actual sales, getting payment or commitment to payment. The question, you have completed all these steps and the customer says, I'll come back tomorrow. What does that mean? Yeah, so it's more like a James Bond story then. Everything has happened and then the fellow says tomorrow never comes. Okay? And so you don't have a comeback tomorrow if the customer says that he doesn't have the funds, he needs to ask his mother, or he needs to phone a friend or something like that. Or he'll say, I'll have to check out 5 more places. Okay, so generally it means it's not closed. Another question. Suppose the fellow actually comes back the next day. Do you straight away go to this process of closing? Okay. So it's a yes and a no. If the customer comes specifically says, I chose a product yesterday, this was what we decided, I have now got the fund, please give it to me, then there's nothing for you to do. But in majority of the cases, what will happen is that the customer will come back and again start the process right from the beginning. Maybe you have something more, maybe you have something different, maybe something has changed. So tell me all over again, what was your product? What other things we can see again? Can we negotiate the price again? And again come to that stage before I actually purchase. So we come to a critical part of understanding this process, that what actually happens when money is paid or a commitment is made. In the consumer mindset, what actually happens when the money is paid or the commitment is made? Okay, so no more options to look for. So what happens when the money is paid or the commitment is made? What does that mean for the consumer? Very good. Have I made the right decision? Is it a aha feeling over there, or is it something else? So in most cases, why it is very difficult is till you not the payment, you feel you are in control and you still have a choice. As soon as you make the payment, your control is gone. The ownership has changed because the commitment is done, and now you can only reassure that you've made the right stuff, or you can start feeling now that, or you will start justifying. So what will happen is, till you've not bought it, you have all the objections. Once you bought it, you have only justifications, right? And again, recall processes that happen at home. When someone else in the family does shopping and they come back home and show you those products, You ask the price, the fellow tells the price, you say, no, this is costly. How does that person react? You have the right to make objections because you are not part of the decision making. And when you make those objections, how does that person react? So they'll go to any extent in that reaction. They'll say, you don't know anything, you don't know what is this material, you don't know the quality, you don't know how the prices work, you don't understand things. Okay, all sorts of things. So they will definitely defend that decision. They are not the salesperson, but it is their product now, so they have to justify it. That is why this closing is important, where you have to make people commit. And if you can't make them commit at this stage, likelihood is either they won't come back, or if they come back, you may have to restart the whole process from zero. What do you do then to get a commitment? Give me examples you've seen around in your experiences that people do to make you do that commitment. So if someone of you has been in IT sales, what do you do to get that commitment? Can you give me some discussion, things that you do there? Okay, so I'll give you some things that you tend to do. You try to bring in certain factors where you make the person commit. So when you have these contracts, you write over there, this price or this structure is valid only for 72 hours. Which means that you're somewhere making the person commit within that, otherwise it is reopened for a different sort of pricing or whatever. You also have situations where you tell people these are the only few opportunities left, and if you do not give a commitment within X amount of time, then we are likely to give this to somebody else. Okay, so there are different things. On the more low value items, you have things like, this is the end of my day, so just before I close the shop, I'll give you X if you want to take it now. You have things like, there is this free gift if you take it today with me. Okay? So try non-monetary things, or try to see all those things that you believe can get in more money first, and then try other things. Not much of debate over here to give, but just a tip that always ensure that it does not rock the boat, so to say. When I say that, it means that between different sales processes, the variation between what you have committed to close the deal at the end should not be so large that other salespeople in your same team can never do it, or everybody will end up doing that much more every time, because you've created a precedence which is a very big significant difference from the allowable limits. So marketing guys generally give an allowable limit. For example, all salespeople have a certain incentive built in their own system, and mostly you will see salespeople give out their own incentives as part of deal closing, and that is a sort of limit that is there within the organization and even within the channels. So a dealer has a certain margin, he can give from that margin. A retailer has a certain margin, he is free to give that margin away, and these are the limits under which it moves. Okay? Now you come to the last part, which is after sales service or customer relationship building. I will take the first part and the last part together. The first part was lead gen and the last part is after sales service or customer relationship building. So when we take lead gen, this is more of a marketing function and less of a sales function. So it's an overlapping sort of function where both can do it, but it is more a marketing function and less of a sales function. So this is a function where we say the baton is being passed. The sales guy has brought in the lead through their own advertising, through their lead gen methods, whatever ways, and then handed over that lead to the sales people to get into deeper focus and work on that. And this last part is where the baton is again passed back. So the expectation from the sales guy is only to be around in the beginning so that you make that customer comfortable, because when the first usage starts, there is always a little pain and people like to connect back to the sales guy and not to the marketing teams. They generally want to talk to the salesperson who made the sale and get that reassurance that we got the right thing from the same person and he's still around. But thereafter, this moves back into the domain of marketing, who go into the more long-term customer relationship building. CRM today is a different exercise in itself, where people take care of birthdays and this and that and keep sending out emailers and different product catalogs and all that, basically ensuring that the customer keeps giving repeat sales. So these are the two steps where you take the baton from marketing and you give the baton back to marketing. That's the whole sales process. Anybody has any questions? Otherwise, I will discuss the assignment and wind up for today. The net connectivity has held out, so I think that's a good sign for today. Yeah. Anybody has any questions? Otherwise, I will take the assignment. Any questions, please? What are the major roles of marketing and sales in companies? So, Manjunath, I think that's what I've covered in today's session. That marketing will do the full part, which is communicate, make awareness, create the entire interest in the products, bring in the sales leads. Then the sales guys are supposed to take it up from the stage of leads right up to getting the commitment and the initial part of after sales service, and thereafter handed back to marketing for long-term relationship building. So that's sales to marketing. Difference between sales and pre-sales. Okay, so I think if you look at this process, the sales process or the engagement process is really the approach to the closing. The pre-sales is that pre-approach process where you differentiate the leads into the prospects or suspects, or you can say where you differentiate the leads from the most probable lead to the least probable lead, and create a sales process with the resources at hand so that you are able to take out the maximum juice from the leads that are available to you. Who has more responsibility in company growth? Okay, Surya has an answer here for everyone. Pre-sales in IT means different things. It means supporting sales people in responding to RFPs, so request for proposals. Surya, is it not similar? I'm giving a more generic process here. So in IT, as we discussed, obviously there is more technical expertise needed because we are talking of solutions. And because the sales guy themselves may not be able to answer everything, you say that in pre-sales, the technical people support the sales people to respond to RFPs. But then this is again that stage where you're trying to gather the data from the RFPs, profile those customers, which may be bigger and smaller in numbers. And again, basically what you're doing is doing the ranking of these, that based on the final proposals, who is the most likely customer and who is the less likely customer. So it's a different way of doing it, which is obviously going to happen in every industry and every situation, but basic concept remains the same. So yeah, I think that's how you can put it. It is sales enablement. How to make the sales process more productive is about pre-sales. Manjunath has a question here. Who has more responsibility in company growth? That's an easy one, Manjunath. I started saying that sales is a subset of marketing, which means eventually the responsibility lies with the marketing department because sales remains a subset of marketing. Okay, so those are the questions for today. As far as the assignment is concerned, again a very, very simple assignment. Since you have all gone through a sales process very recently, and that is the sales process of Sunstone Business School itself, where you were the customer and you went through all these steps where you went on a LinkedIn somewhere, you applied, then you gave an interview and all these things. And therefore, your assignment is that suppose you were now the salesperson for Sunstone and you had to get 5 more students into Sunstone. How would you do it? You have to follow simply these 7 steps. Start from prospecting, go to follow-up, and tell me what you would do. As simple as that. Yes, now marketing session is marketing us. So that's the session today. Next one, I will be taking up the BCG matrix. We'll talk about market share, market growth rate, and sales growth rate. 3 concepts which are highly confused by people, although very key parameters. And we will also then study the customer acquisition cost and customer lifetime value. And we'll also have one more assignment there, which is individual, before you start working on your group assignments. And I hope that you have started working on your group assignment by now. Uh, Satyavrata network marketing. Yeah, you could also position the 7 steps into a network marketing method. Balaji, I should be knowing this, but I am sorry, I really don't know whether this is your last course in L1. As I remember, my course has moved up a little bit. So maybe there is one finance course or something pending at the end. It used to be the last course earlier. So thank you very much. I won't have the time now because my train is in the next half an hour. So I won't be able to put up the recording links and all tonight. But I will be rushing out now, and by tomorrow evening I'll put in the recording links. As usual, I also make a conversion into YouTube and put it up there for all those. Even at the cost of the quality, at least they can be able to see and hear the recording. Okay, thank you very much.